Just ran into your TikTok after my girls had their worst fight ever, right? So that tells me these dogs have been fighting before.
Yeah.
Like what we just talked about, right? Like they probably have had a lot of little squabbles before over stuff that we've just chalked up as not a big deal, right? And we didn't really look at seriously and say, why did this happen? How do we make sure this doesn't happen again?
Yeah.
I have 3 mini Aussies, all with varying levels of anxiety. Massive problem behavioral issues amongst the dogs individually. Anxiety issues with dogs is a very common reason why dogs will start getting attacked in multi-dog households.
Yeah.
Unstable energy, dogs want to control because it drives them fucking insane.
Yeah.
Right? Especially if they're anxious themselves.
Oh, yeah.
Right? They normally get along great and handle most situations well. This week has been an outlier of a week, but we still want to curb the behavior and restore peace. The start of the week, the girls had a stomach bug that made them irritable with one another, and they got into 2 small tiffs. All right, we're making excuses. The stomach bug, listen, when dogs aren't feeling good, sure, they could be a little more irritable over things and stuff like that. But if I have adequate control over them, there shouldn't be a reason why a stomach bug would cause them to start becoming aggressive towards each other unless they were left to their own devices and not being given adequate direction by me, right? Sometimes I hear clients do this with like one-on-one sessions and stuff. Like maybe they'll cancel a session for a week or 2 because one of the dogs is getting sick, right? And, you know, they'll come back and they'll be like, well, the dog was sick, or you know, a dog will have a surgery for something or whatever it may be. And they'll be like, well, it's been like 3 weeks since we've been able to do things. The dog started regressing back and this and that. It's like, guys, your dog being ill or being injured or whatever it may mean, yes, that means you can't work on your obedience training with the dog all the time, but the rules still apply. If one of my dogs is sick, and because they're sick and irritable, they start getting reactive out the window towards shit, I'm still going to fucking punish them very firmly for that.
Oh, yeah.
If one of my dogs had a surgery and is like actually injured, or Vera, when she tore her ACL and she was like all laid out from that and stuff like that, if she started resource guarding bones because her leg hurt her, she would have still, even though she's injured, gotten punished very firmly for that behavior. Your dog's illness or injury is not an excuse for poor behavior.
Yeah.
And you need to look at it that way, because sometimes we too often will make the excuse and be like, well, they're sick, so I'm not going to correct them, right? Oh, they're injured, so I can't put the e-collar on them. They just had a surgery. Their leg hurts, this, that. You got to do right. Like it's just the way it is, right? Like if your child had a bad day and is feeling sick and decided to go fucking rob a bank because of it, like they're still going to get in big trouble for that.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Like that's just the way it is, right? In obedience training, let me say this again for like louder for people in the back, right? Is that what they're saying, right? Obedience training has nothing to do with your dog not rehearsing behavioral issues.
0.
Okay, where was I? Had a stomach bug, made him irritable. With the other one, they got into 2 small tiffs. They got over their bugs and remained friends. Yesterday, we had a housewarming party where the girls did amazing. Come today, and they run into each other, going to their lunches, and break out into a noisy fight. So that means the dogs are entirely too impulsive over their food, and you don't have adequate control over feeding time, right? So listen, one, you need to get adequate control over feeding time. I've talked about this before. I've shown videos of how I feed my dogs and make sure that there's no problems or anything like that. But feeding time, if you don't have control over the dogs, that will turn into a fight eventually.
Yeah.
Right? There is no reason why one dog should run over and bump into another while they're eating. And if just the one running over and bumping into the other dog caused a fight to happen, that means that situation has happened many times before, where the dog's threshold to it happening is so low that today was the day they decided to fight over it, because they've probably just kind of grumbled or squabbled a little bit or things like that in the past numerous times before. And at that point, it was just like, enough is enough. I'm fighting over this now. Right? And they even said no connections, just a lot of noise and stuff. So again, a squabble, right? That we probably chalked up as, oh, it's no big deal, right? They break up super quick and are able to eat in different rooms and still play together after, right? It's just like that's a major problem that's probably happened many times leading up to this point that we need to get the fuck under control. Now to the worst one this evening. Our middle dog is playing with a toy that normally is a shared tug toy and is a favorite amongst our 2 younger dogs. Big red flag. Big red flags. Toys are not designed to be shareable. Actually, let me caveat that. Some toys, I'm sure, are designed to be shareable toys. You should not have shareable toys amongst dogs. I don't care how good your dog is with playing tug with your other dog with each other. I don't want my dogs competing with each other.
Yeah.
That just shouldn't happen. It turns into problems.
Yeah.
Right? Like there's no reason why when one dog is engaging with a toy that another one should need to come over and share that toy with them. That's putting them in such a vulnerable position that if we just nix that and we say, if you have a toy, you're not fucking with you. If you have a toy, you're not fucking with you, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It won't be a problem.
Yeah.
Right?
100%.
Normally, toys are not an issue, but apparently today was, because as trainers were able to look at that situation like you described of shared toys, they love to play tug with each other, this and that, as that will turn into a problem eventually. To you, it's this should just be fine, right? But it will turn into a problem eventually, so you can't have that. The youngest runs and jumps on the middle dog. There's no reason why they should come and run and jump on the other dog, right?
Yeah.
And it starts the worst fight they ever had. The middle dog ended up with a cut in her eye. We took her to the vet for to get it clean and bandaged. The youngest has never been that aggressive before. She kept going after her because it compounds. It escalates over time. And once dogs start fighting, it generally will intensify very quickly. The older one tried to join in from the hallway. That's because fights are like a magnet. When two dogs are fighting with each other, all the others want to try to get involved in it because that energy is addictive. This also happened in our tightest hallways, which also seems like a common factor for the tiffs and now fights, I suppose. So it sounds like a lot of issues happen in that hallway that we probably should have done a better job up until this point, looking at, dissecting, and figuring out why is this happening right now. So that's the other one, right? So again, dogs with massive anxiety issues, getting into fights with each other. Like it's...
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. It's just...
these issues are so much more cut and dry than people think.
Yeah.
You know? And I think a lot of trainers have a hard time helping owners with fighting issues, which is why you see so many trainers, they say things like, oh, once the dogs start fighting, they're never going to stop fighting and this and that. I will say that it's very fucking hard for a average owner to go from having dogs that get in fights with each other to dogs that don't fight anymore with each other, but it is not impossible. It is not impossible, but I think most trainers have a really hard time breaking that stuff down and figuring out, like we just dissected exactly why both of those people are having their issues, right? And exactly what the solution is for it is individually, we have to get those dogs perfect, and we have to make sure that we understand why these fights are happening. We proactively don't put them in a position where they're going to happen again.
Yeah.